Hello and welcome along to the second of our factory talks in the company of Gail Estaugh, who is Head of Innovation at the Cornwall Development Company, and Caitlin Gould, Director of Bluefruit Software, and also serves as the Chair of the Digital Skills Partnership for Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. So Gail, let's talk first of all to you about Cornwall. When I come down, which I like to do regularly, all we see is images of cream teas, of pasties, of pole duck. Is that the real Cornwall now, or is it a bit more scientific than perhaps the Cornwall Tourist Board likes to let us know?
I think it's both. I mean, we're really proud of the natural beauty that attracts so many people here, but most people do tend to stick around the coast. And if they were to head a mile inland, they'd be quite surprised, I think, to see what's happening across the region. We've got an incredible heritage that people will be familiar with in things like the mining sector. We've been leading the way there in the development of the steam engine. The steam locomotive all started in Cornwall in the 1700s. But what's been happening recently is there's been an investment in technology development. And now we're seeing 5 different areas of technology. And what we're really keen to do is bring those together. So if you look at something like the marine sector, lots of heritage there, and strength in some of the composite technologies, for example. That's really now focusing on floating offshore wind and how we make the most of the Celtic Sea and the opportunities that the deep water around Cornwall affords us. We're also really lucky that we've got 5 of the hottest underground pockets in the UK in Cornwall. So geothermal energy is becoming really important. And we're also fortunate to have mineral deposits that are world class. We've got tungsten, lithium, copper, the traditional china clay, but also tin. And I think with our focus on electronics and the importance of those precious metals in the electronics industry, there's real value in those sectors. That's not to say that the traditional agri-tech, the agricultural and fisheries markets and the tourism sector are not equally important. But what we'd like to do is see them all working together in harmony.
Now, I've heard the Cornish economy traditionally described as a 3-legged stool, talking of the marine as one leg, mining as the second, and tourism as the third leg. Question to both of you, really. You mentioned the 5 sectors there, Gail. Are we now talking of a 5-legged Cornwall stool as far as the economy is concerned?
Absolutely, and the local industrial strategy that's been drafted cites those 5 as things that are really unique to Cornwall. But the umbrella that sits across them is that we have a target within Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly to become carbon neutral by 2030. So that is 20 years ahead of the UK government target. And we're really keen to invest in technology. And Caitlin can speak a little bit about the investment in skills to drive that forwards.
Yeah, I think it's always an interesting thing when you're trying to talk about heritage as well as the future. So for us, it's as Gail said, it's not about necessarily displacing existing stool legs, if you like. It's about adding additional ones so that we can be as strong of a county as possible. We want to be able to give lots of opportunities and lots of diversity for people, for jobs, for their futures, for them to be able to do anything they want to in Cornwall. So if there's a young child growing up in Cornwall and they want to be a chef, brilliant. There's lots of wonderful restaurants where they can do that. But if the kid sitting next to them in class decides they want to be an aerospace engineer, they can both be coming from the same school in Cornwall and both have those two careers. So it's about kind of broadening out what the skills look like across Cornwall and making sure we have that wide range of opportunities for people in the county to work in the county and to contribute back to the county. So it's really exciting.
I'm wondering as well if, in some ways, the pandemic of the past 12 months might have helped, because it's changed the way that virtually everyone in the country works or perceives working. Working from home now is very much more the norm than it used to be. Whereas in the past, people perhaps thought Cornwall was a bit out of the way, a bit remote. That's not the problem anymore, because we can now work from home using technologies such as Zoom, Teams, Skype, which would in effect make Cornwall just as close to London as perhaps Watford is.
I think what's been great actually about the pandemic is that it's evened the playing field a bit. everybody's working from their living room. So it doesn't matter if the office is in London or if the office is in Cornwall. If anything as well, it's been really beneficial to Cornwall because as a remote location, we've been good at this for a long time. We've known how to be able to run projects and how to communicate to clients that are based overseas. We knew how to run that efficiently already without having to travel. We also have a huge number of people, highly skilled people that work in Cornwall already as a part of the remote work economy, who've been working for companies like Facebook and Google from Redruth for years. So it hasn't actually changed that much. If anything, it's just helped everyone else come to our level. We also have the benefit of having super fast broadband across most of Cornwall. So for us, there hasn't been as much of those connectivity issues that other people have experienced. So, you know, it's been a really challenging time, don't get me wrong. But in some ways, we've probably felt the impact a bit less here at the moment.
Yeah. And the phone is definitely ringing for our trade and investment team, for people that want to relocate, maybe set up an office that they can work from home in, because they realise that they don't have to be on the M4 corridor. They can come down here and maybe visit their clients as and when needed, when the pandemic is over. But what we've been always very good at culturally, I think, within the business community in Cornwall is collaborating. It's a small economy. It's been used to reaching out and working with people all over, as Caitlin said.
Now, Caitlin, and I've got a list here, you are the chair of the Digital Skills Partnership. You sit on the Employment Skills Board. You're a member of Software Cornwall, as well as having founded TechGirl. So what's your message to companies and individuals about working in Cornwall?
So you might not be able to tell from my accent, but I'm not actually originally from Cornwall. But I moved down to Cornwall 10 years ago with a lot of probably the similar perceptions of what you thought. Moved down with my husband, who is a chef, who set up a restaurant. And I was working in the digital sector in London and kind of internationally. And I took a look around and just got so excited and motivated. I ended up leaving the London-based company and have worked locally within the digital sector ever since. And it's just a little bit different. You know, I've seen what it looks like in Silicon Valley in California, where I grew up. I've seen what it looks like in London. And the local digital sector is just it's got a different vibe to it. It's an open community, as Gail said previously. It's not very large, which means people collaborate. We work well together. Bluefruit Software knows other software companies, and instead of trying to constantly compete and steal resources from each other, we actually run joint work experience programs together to try to bring up the whole of the county and grow new talent. We also all contribute a lot more back to the community that I've seen before. And there's a real sense of kind of enjoyment in the work, a pride, and a nice balance as well. You know, people are here and they have the kind of freedom and the space and the air to breathe, which, although is great for the lifestyle, also really helps with the innovation. You need that kind of open air to be able to drive new ideas. You need the community to bounce ideas off of, and we've really got that down here in spades. And because the community's close, we're able to work together and kind of share that. So it's really nice. I'd highly recommend it. I mean, we'd prefer for companies to come down and employ all the locals that are down here. But if you are working in this space and you're thinking about coming down, there's tons of jobs within software in Cornwall, which people might not consider.
So, Caitlin, I guess you spend quite a bit of time talking to kids, to students. Is it getting easier to persuade them that Cornwall might be a place for them to stay, or is there still that traditional mindset amongst youngsters that they need to move away to progress their career?
I think it's still something that we will have as a challenge for a while. I do believe it's getting easier the more we do outreach into the community. So, as you said, the more time we spend talking to the schools, making sure that they're aware of all the career opportunities that exist in Cornwall, that they don't have to go away to study. They don't have to go away for new jobs if they don't want to. There's lots of opportunity here. And I think that's really growing, especially with the work that the colleges are doing locally. And also we've got Falmouth University, Exeter University has a campus in Cornwall, and Plymouth is very close as well. So it does mean that there's kind of new opportunities that kids didn't have in the past. We hear a lot from people who grew up in Cornwall in the kind of 80s and 90s who say it looked like a totally different environment from what they grew up in terms of the opportunity, the aspiration, the possibility. But we're also doing a lot around changing work experience. So thinking about how to get more kids engaged really early on through work experience, apprenticeships, other programs. So they don't just hear about these companies in Cornwall where maybe they could work. They get to go in, they get to see them. We're, as Bluefruit, are based in Redruth. So it's really important for us to go into the local schools and make sure that kids growing up in Redruth, which is an area of quite a lot of deprivation, realize that there are jobs with Bluefruit Software. Our Head Forward's another software company just down the road. So they don't have to leave their communities to be in these kinds of careers, and that the careers are possible for the kids growing up in these communities. So I think that's a really big thing. At the end of the day, we still want kids to be able to go out and explore. So if they want to go and try things out and learn things in other places, that's fine. We're also finding more and more people who grew up in Cornwall are coming back. So they come back when they want to settle down and have a family. And for us, it's perfect. They're usually coming back right when they're at the height of their career. So we welcome back with open arms.
Caitlin, great. Gail, we spoke to you a lot in the last programme about aerospace. You've hinted earlier on in this programme about all the other sectors, the various sectors in Cornwall, the various tech sectors. Talk to me more about those, particularly about how you're going to be working with the marine sector.
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting is some of the traditional sectors have got really cutting edge technology now being used within them. So you take something like the marine sector, that's using aerospace technology and drones to actually monitor some of the offshore floating wind platforms. You take the agri-tech sector, again, that's using satellite data to monitor crop rotations and some of the farming practices. So you're seeing the technologies all blending together. And I think, I work very much in the space sector. That satellite data underpins every other one of our 5 pillars, if you like. And what we'd like to see is a really much more sort of smart use of that data and create the intelligence to make sure that not only are we using our resources locally much more effectively, but we're exporting that knowledge so others can learn from what we've done. One of the things that people don't see when they visit as tourists is that actually over that very industrial period over the last 250 years, we've actually done a lot of damage to Cornwall. People don't think so when they see the nice harbour towns and the coastal beauty. But inland there are mine waste heaps that haven't been dealt with properly. We have over-farmed, but we've learned from those mistakes, and now we're bringing technology in to make sure that we make absolutely the right decisions. And we talk about Cornwall as being a living laboratory, but what we want to do is show other people how not to make the same mistakes. And if you take that to the ultimate level, we're dealing with a lot of technology developers who are developing products that are going to end up in space, and we need to make sure that we are exporting the knowledge of sustainable resource use when we go off the planet. We don't want to go and jeopardize our future potential to explore the universe by treating it badly.
Gail, it's been fascinating. I want to finish with one last question. It's what you'd like to see as far as national government, local businesses, local organisations. What would you be urging them to do in Cornwall, for Cornwall, and with Cornwall looking forward?
I think there's two answers to that question, Richard. I think from a local perspective, we're fortunate that we already have a devolution deal. So we can make a lot of our own decisions, which that autonomous ability to decision make is brilliant. But I think what we'd like to do is make sure that we're then not sort of separated off and dealt with completely and forgotten about almost. So bridging that geographical gap. And I think over the last year, it's shown us all how easy that is if you bring technology into the mix. So making sure that we're visible in Westminster and sharing the successes that are coming out of what is effectively a very rural economy, so that the UK PLC has got, you know, lots of messages to talk about and secure investment into the UK. I do think there needs to be a constant investment in R&D, and I guess I would say that, but I'm really pleased that recently there has been an increase in the investment in R&D activity, and I want to make sure that Cornwall gets its fair share of that. So having regional ambassadors that focus on the deployment of that, I think, is really important. And also, I think the G7 summit this year will give us a great opportunity to showcase to politicians and people who are influencing policy just what different regions can teach each other, and how you can actually have strengths and opportunities and areas of specialism that actually, when combined, are part of one narrative rather than treating different parts of the country differently. So I think that would be my wish list.
Gail and Caitlin, thank you so much for being on Factory Talk, both this week and last week. It's been really interesting to talk to you. And you can find that other episode of Factory Talk with Gail and Caitlin on MTD, There's loads of other episodes there, including our fascinating insight into the world of design and innovation with the legendary automotive manufacturer Gordon Murray. But we'll see you again for another Factory Talk soon. Bye-bye.